I stared at the bank statement on my phone, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. $47,000. Gone. Not stolen, signed away. By my own husband. My stomach dropped like I was in free fall, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. The numbers blurred in front of my eyes as my mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This was supposed to be our emergency fund, the safety net we'd built together over 8 years of marriage. And now it was vanishing into thin air because of a decision I never knew was being made. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. 6 months earlier, everything was perfect. Or at least, that's what I thought. My name is Ashley, and I'm a pediatric nurse at County General in Portland, Oregon. I work the day shift, which means I'm home by 6 most evenings, and I've got weekends off most of the time. My husband Michael is a construction manager. Good salary, steady work, the kind of guy who knows how to handle himself on a job site and comes home smelling like sawdust and sweat. We'd been married for 8 years, together for 11 before that, and we lived in a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in the West Hills suburbs with a renovated kitchen, a backyard with a deck, and a mortgage that was manageable because we'd both worked hard to make it so. Michael's older brother, Brandon, had always been a problem. I mean that in the most literal sense. Brandon was 42, divorced twice, unemployed more often than not, and he had this way of showing up at our house on a Friday evening with a story about being evicted or needing to borrow money for a car repair or his kids' medical bills. Michael always caved, every single time. His face would go tight. He'd sigh in that way that meant he was about to do something he knew I wouldn't like. And then he'd disappear into his office to figure out how to make it work. I'd tried to be understanding about it. Brandon was family. Michael felt responsible. I got it. But there was a pattern, and patterns are what worry me. Ash, can we talk for a second? Michael asked one Tuesday evening in March. He was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, doing that thing where he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. I was prepping dinner, marinating chicken for fajitas, our Wednesday night tradition. Except it was Tuesday, and we'd just had Mexican food on Sunday, which struck me as odd. Sure, what's up? I kept chopping peppers, not wanting to make it a bigger deal than it was. Brandon called. He's in a situation. I set down the knife. What kind of situation? His custody case. The lawyer he had was terrible. Didn't show up for court. The whole thing fell apart. He's going to lose parenting time with Emma unless he can afford a better attorney. A real one, not some public defender who's drowning in cases. Emma was Brandon's daughter with his second ex-wife, Nicole. She was 8, a sweet kid I'd seen maybe 5 times in 3 years because Brandon's parenting was about as consistent as his employment. How much? I asked, already knowing the answer would make my chest tight. 12 grand. I set the pepper down. Michael, I know what you're going to say. Do you? Because I'm about to say that we've given him money 4 times in the last 2 years. 4 times. And every single time, something else comes up 6 months later. Michael rubbed his face. He looked tired. He'd been working long hours on a commercial project downtown, and it was eating into his sleep, his mood, everything. He's my brother, Ash. He's going to lose his daughter. He's going to lose his daughter because he makes terrible decisions and doesn't follow through on anything. That's not our responsibility. The words hung in the air between us, sharp and final. Michael's jaw clenched. I could see him working through it, wrestling with the part of him that wanted to help his family, and the part of him that knew I was right. I'm going to help him, he said quietly. I've already told him I would. With what money, Michael? We've got 18 grand in our emergency fund. 18. That's supposed to cover job loss, medical situations, the roof if it needs replacement. If you give him 12 grand, we're down to 6. 6. That's not even 2 months of mortgage payments. I know the math. Do you? Because it doesn't seem like you do. It seems like you've already made up your mind and you're just telling me as a courtesy." He didn't argue. That was the worst part. He just stood there, and I could see the answer in his shoulders, in the way his eyes finally met mine with this mixture of guilt and determination that I recognized. He'd already committed to it. The decision was made. "We'll be fine," he said. "I'll make more this year. The downtown project is going to finish in June, and I've already got another contract lined up for the fall. It's going to be fine." I turned back to the peppers and started chopping again, harder than necessary. "Okay," I said, but it wasn't okay. It wasn't okay at all. That was the first crack. The first time I felt the ground shift beneath my feet and realized that Michael and I weren't as aligned as I thought we were. He gave Brandon the $12,000. We watched our emergency fund shrink, and Michael was right. His income picked up in the spring, and by summer we'd rebuilt it. By August, we were back to $47,000. Everything seemed fine again. I let myself believe that this was an anomaly, a one-time thing, a moment of weakness that had passed. I was so wrong. #continuation. Acts 5 and 6. 10,000 characters. September hit Portland like a cold fist. The leaves were turning gold and rust, and I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of County General, staring at my phone for the third time that morning, trying to work up the courage to open the banking app again. The statement hadn't changed. It never changed. $47,000. Gone. Transferred. Signed away by Michael without my knowledge or consent. I discovered it by accident on a Tuesday evening while looking for our property tax information. Michael was at a job site meeting downtown. The kids— wait, I haven't mentioned the kids yet. We don't have kids. That's the thing. That's the thing that made this all somehow worse. It was just the two of us. Just our money. Just our life. And he'd made a decision that gutted us both without asking me. When I confronted him that night, he didn't deny it. That was almost the worst part. He didn't try to lie or minimize it. Brandon needed help, Michael said. He was standing in the kitchen in his work boots, still wearing his high-visibility vest. His business, the landscaping thing he was starting, the startup costs were higher than he thought. He was going to lose the contract with the city. It was a real opportunity, Ash, a real chance for him to turn things around. I felt something cold slide down my spine. $12,000 wasn't enough? You had to give him 47? He asked for 50. I told him no. 47 was my limit. My limit. As if this was his decision to make alone. As if I hadn't worked double shifts for 3 years to build that emergency fund. As if I hadn't skipped my own dental work last year because we were saving money. Michael, that's not your money to give away. That's our money, our future. He's my brother. Your brother's family is not my responsibility. The words came out sharp and bitter, and I watched them hit him like a punch. But I didn't take them back. I couldn't. They were the truest thing I'd said in months. I am your responsibility. We are your responsibility, not Brandon, not his failed businesses and his custody issues and his— So you want me to just abandon him? Let him fail? Yes, I said. That's exactly what I want. He's a grown man, Michael. He has to learn that actions have consequences. Michael turned away and walked out of the kitchen. I heard the back door open and close. He didn't come home until after midnight. I lay awake the entire time, listening to the empty house settle around me, feeling the weight of betrayal crushing down on my chest. That was 3 weeks ago. Nothing had improved. Michael had become distant, moving through our house like a ghost, barely speaking to me except about logistics. What time would you be home? We need to pick up milk. The roof inspector is coming Thursday. Nothing real. Nothing that mattered. I called my mother on a Wednesday. This was a mistake. I knew it immediately. But I was drowning, and I needed someone to throw me a rope. He gave away how much? My mother, Linda, practically shrieked through the phone. $47,000. Without asking you? Without asking me. Linda went quiet for a moment. I could hear her breathing, could picture her sitting in her kitchen in Bend, Oregon, 2 hours away, her hand over her mouth the way she did when she was processing bad news. That's divorce attorney territory, she said finally. The word hung between us. Divorce. I'd been avoiding it, refusing to even think it, as if not acknowledging it would make it untrue. But my mother had said it out loud, and suddenly it was real. Real and terrifying, and somehow inevitable. I don't know, I whispered. I don't know if we're there yet. Ashley, listen to me. You need to talk to someone, a lawyer, just to understand your options, not to do anything, just to know where you stand. I agreed, but I didn't do it. Instead, I did what I've been doing for 3 weeks. I went to work, I took care of my patients, I came home and made dinner while Michael sat in the living room watching sports, and I felt the distance between us growing wider every single day. Then, on a Friday afternoon, something shifted. I was at work in the pediatric ward when one of the nurses, Jennifer, who I'd worked with for 6 years, pulled me aside in the break room. "Hey, can I ask you something personal?" she said, closing the door behind her. My stomach tightened. "Sure." "Is everything okay with you? You've been weird for like 3 weeks. You're quiet, you're not joking around, and today you made a charting error that you literally never do. That's not you." Jennifer was one of the good ones. She had 3 kids, a husband who actually loved her, and she had this way of cutting through bullshit with kindness. I'd always admired that about her. "My husband did something," I heard myself say. "Something that betrayed my trust." Jennifer sat down on the plastic chair and gestured for me to sit. So I did. And then I told her everything. The whole story. Brandon, the money, the decision made without me, the distance, the feeling of being erased from my own marriage. Jennifer listened without interrupting. When I finished, she reached over and squeezed my hand. "You know what my dad used to say?" she asked. "He used to say that money is just a symptom. It's not really about the money. It's about whether you matter, whether your opinion matters, whether your partnership means anything." I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. I couldn't stop them. "You need to talk to a lawyer," Jennifer said gently. "Not because I think you should get divorced, but because you need to know what your rights are. You need to know what you're protecting." And sometimes, when someone realizes you're serious, when they understand that their actions have actual consequences, they wake up. She gave me the name of someone, her cousin's divorce attorney in downtown Portland, Sarah Chen. "She's not going to push you toward anything," Jennifer said. "She's just going to tell you the truth about your situation." I called Sarah's office the next morning. Her secretary got me an appointment for Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Michael didn't ask where I was going. I didn't tell him. The law office was on the 15th floor of a glass building overlooking the Willamette River. Sarah Chen was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately made me feel like I was in the right place. "Walk me through what happened," she said, settling into her chair across from me. I told her about the $47,000, about the joint account, about the fact that Michael had power of attorney on that account for emergencies. But this wasn't an emergency. It was a choice. Sarah took notes, asking clarifying questions. How long had we been married? 8 years. Did we have a prenup? No. What was the current state of our assets? The house was worth maybe $620,000, with a mortgage of about $380,000. We had retirement accounts. We had his truck, my car. "And he transferred this money without your knowledge?" Sarah asked. "Yes, he signed the paperwork with a notary. I found out from the bank statement." Sarah set down her pen. "Okay, here's what I need you to understand. In Oregon, community property laws mean that any assets acquired during the marriage are owned equally by both spouses, regardless of whose name is on the account. What your husband did, transferring $47,000 without your consent, that's a significant issue. It's a breach of the fiduciary duty that spouses owe each other. What does that mean? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. It means that if this marriage ends, I can argue that those funds should be traced and included in your settlement. It means you have protection, legally speaking. It means you're not as vulnerable as you feel. The relief that washed over me was so intense I had to grip the arms of the chair. I don't want to get divorced, I said quickly. I just needed to know that you have options, Sarah finished, that you're not trapped. I understand. Here's what I'd suggest. You take this information and you go home. You have a conversation with your husband. You tell him you've spoken to a lawyer and you know what your rights are. You tell him that this behavior, making unilateral financial decisions, betraying your trust, refusing to communicate, that this needs to stop. And then you see what he does with that information. And if he doesn't change? Sarah looked at me directly. Then you know exactly what to do next. I left her office with a folder of documents and a lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt in weeks. I had power. I had knowledge. I had options. That evening, Michael came home at 6:30, as usual. I'd made dinner, his favorite, actually, which felt important somehow. Salmon with lemon and dill, roasted potatoes, a salad. We need to talk, I said, setting the plates down on the table. Michael's entire body went rigid. I'd never said those words to him before. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never had to say them because we'd always just talked. Before everything went wrong, we were the kind of couple that communicated, that worked through things together. I went to see a divorce attorney today, I said. His face went white. Ashley, not because I want a divorce, but because I needed to understand my position. I needed to know that I wasn't trapped, and I'm not. Do you understand what that means? Michael stared at me like I was a stranger. It means that what you did, giving away $47,000 of our community property without my consent, that's not okay. It's not a gray area. It's not something we can just move past. It's a betrayal of trust and a violation of our partnership. I was trying to help my brother. I don't care, I said, and I meant it. Your brother is not my responsibility, but you are. This marriage is. And right now, you're not acting like you care about either of those things. Michael put his head in his hands. His shoulders started to shake. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, Ash, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to say no to him. I've never known how to say no to him. And I knew you'd be upset, so I just did it without telling you. I was a coward. I watched him cry, and I felt something break open inside me. Not the walls, those were staying up, but something underneath. Some part of me that still loved him, that still wanted this to work. I need to know that this is going to change, I said quietly. I need to know that you understand what you did, and that it won't happen again. It won't, Michael said. I swear to you, it won't. But even as he said it, I was thinking about Sarah's words, about how people need to understand there are consequences, about how sometimes knowing you have options is the only thing that saves you. I wasn't sure yet if Michael had learned that lesson, and I wasn't sure anymore if staying was the right choice. All I knew was that I was no longer afraid, and that changed everything. The week after that conversation was quiet. Too quiet. Michael moved through our house like he was walking on eggshells, careful with every word, every gesture. He'd stopped watching sports in the living room. Instead, he'd taken to sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop, working on job estimates, keeping me in sight. It felt performative, and I hated that. I wanted to believe he'd actually changed, but the cynicism had taken root, and I couldn't seem to shake it. On Thursday, my phone rang while I was at work. It was Brandon. "Hey, Ash," he said, and I could hear something desperate in his voice. "Is Michael around? I've been trying to reach him all morning." "He's at a job site. Why? What's wrong?" There was a long pause. The landscaping contract fell through. The city changed vendors at the last minute. I lost the whole thing. I closed my eyes. Of course he did. Of course the $47,000 had gone somewhere that didn't matter, didn't stick, didn't change anything. "Brandon, I'm sorry, but I know Michael gave me that money. I know it was supposed to fix things. But I'm going to lose my apartment next month if I can't make rent. I'm thinking about asking him for help again." My stomach dropped. No, absolutely not. "Ash, come on, it's just—" "No, Brandon, you need to hear this from me directly. Michael is not giving you any more money. Not next month, not next year, not ever. If you call him about this, you're going to destroy what's left of my marriage. Do you understand me?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was smaller. "Yeah, I understand." I hung up and sat in the break room for 15 minutes, just breathing, trying to calm my racing heart. Then I texted Michael. "Brandon called. We need to talk tonight." When I got home, Michael was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee waiting. He looked like he hadn't slept. "He lost the contract," I said, sitting down across from him. "I know. He called me after he called you." And? And I told him no. I told him that the money he got from us was it, that he needs to figure out his own life, and that I can't keep being his safety net. Michael's hands were wrapped around his coffee cup, and I could see they were shaking slightly. "I told him that you were right, that his family is not your responsibility, and that he's dragging me down with him." I felt something catch in my chest. What did he say? He got angry, really angry. He said I was abandoning him, that family was supposed to mean something, that I was pussy-whipped by you. Michael's jaw tightened at the word. He said if I wouldn't help him, I was a traitor to the family. Then he hung up. "Are you okay?" I asked carefully. "No," Michael said. "I'm not. But I'm also done. I'm done feeling guilty for his choices. I'm done letting him make decisions for me. And I'm sorry, Ashley. I'm so sorry for what I did, for not talking to you, for betraying your trust." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to fold my hands over his and say that everything was fine, that we could move forward. But I'd learned something in the past few weeks. Belief without verification is just hope, and hope isn't a strategy. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "Anything. I need you to go to therapy. Not couples therapy, individual therapy. I need you to understand why you have this pattern with Brandon, why you can't say no to him, why you made that decision without talking to me first. Because if we're going to stay married, I need to know that you understand what you did and why, and that you're actually working on it." Michael nodded. "I'll call someone tomorrow." He did. Within a week, he had an appointment with a therapist named Dr. Robert Chen, who specialized in family dysfunction and codependency. Michael went every Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. He didn't tell me what they talked about, and I didn't ask. But I could see something shifting in him. He seemed lighter somehow, less defensive, more present. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Sarah Chen, my divorce attorney. I'd almost forgotten I had her number. "I wanted to follow up with you," she said when I called her back. "See how things were progressing." "Actually, things are better. My husband is in therapy. We're working on it." "That's good to hear. But I do want you to know that we can freeze the $47,000 issue if you'd like. It's still on the table if you need it later." "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that." But even as I said it, I was thinking about what had changed. It wasn't Michael's therapy exactly. It was the fact that I'd been willing to walk away, that I'd gotten professional advice and understood my power, that I'd told my husband, clearly and directly, that his brother's family was not my responsibility. and that I'd meant it. 2 months later, Michael came home with news. "Brandon's moving to Seattle," he said, setting his keys down on the counter. "He got a job with a landscape company there. He's leaving next month." "How do you feel about that?" I asked carefully. "Honestly, relief. I love my brother, but I don't think I can help him by enabling him. And maybe distance will be good for us." Brandon did move. He sent a group text to Michael and his parents saying goodbye, but he didn't reach out to me. I didn't expect him to. We'd never been close, and we certainly weren't now. Life settled into a new normal. Michael kept going to therapy. We started going to couples counseling once a month, just to check in, to make sure we were still on the same page. We rebuilt the emergency fund, dollar by dollar, and slowly, the trust came back. But I never forgot what I learned during those terrible weeks. I never forgot the feeling of being invisible in my own marriage, of having my voice erased by someone else's needs. And I never forgot that I had options, that I didn't have to stay, that I had power. One evening, about 6 months after everything fell apart, Michael and I were sitting on our back deck, watching the sunset over the West Hills. The air was cool, and I had a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. "Thank you," Michael said out of nowhere. "For what?" "For not giving up on us. For being willing to walk away. For making me understand that I had a choice too." I squeezed his hand. "I almost did give up. I would have if things hadn't changed." "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful that you gave me the chance to fix this." We sat in silence for a while, watching the light fade from the sky, and for the first time in months, I felt like we were going to be okay. Not because the problems had disappeared or because Michael had suddenly become perfect, but because we'd both learned something hard and necessary. That love alone isn't enough. Trust matters. Respect matters. And knowing when to fight for something and when to walk away matters most of all. Your brother's family might not be your responsibility, but your marriage is. And if you're the only one fighting for it, that's not a marriage worth saving.